Am I the butthole for attending a party even though I was only invited as a pretty face? Last month I, 25F, got surprisingly invited to an exclusive party that entertained a bunch of tech and creative people who were killing it in their industry and are important clients of my company. The invite came as a surprise because many of my colleagues, who have been working in the company way longer than me, did not receive an invitation. I was told by a good friend of the CEO, who throws these parties, that the reason I'm most likely invited has less to do with my work, and more to do with the fact I'm a good-looking woman and he wanted a few pretty faces around. At first, I was furious and didn't want to show up, but then I decided F it. I figured it would still be a great event to network and to build those LinkedIn connections, so I went. In the end, I managed to partner up with a few of these suits and basically created a role for myself within their companies. When my sister heard of this, she got mad. She said I shouldn't have gone and what I did was morally wrong. She thinks I supported misogynistic behavior and says I should have gone to HR. I don't think I did anything wrong. I use this invite as an opportunity to advance my career and I don't feel bad about it. Am I the butthole for this? NTA. What exactly would you have gone to HR for? CEO's friend said I was only invited because I'm a pretty woman? You have no idea what the truth is, and even if it is the truth, there is no proving it. So you went and you killed it, making connections, etc. That's top quality F you if there was misogyny in play. I agree with this. And lose the misconception that HR exists for employees. HR's primary role is to protect the company. I'm not saying I like it, but it's the truth. LOL at the idea that company HR, which is owned, operated, hired and fired by the CEO, would somehow be able to discipline the CEO for anything he did, let alone something based in hearsay. Well, they wouldn't be able to discipline him per se, but they would be able to inform him he was leaving himself open to legal liability potentially. Though not through this word-of-mouth stuff. Depending on the size of the company, HR could go through legal to talk to CEO, but if there isn't in-house legal counsel, the CEO isn't going to respect the opinion of someone who may have a college degree. Part of the point of HR is that not even the CEO is immune, but only for real crap, not whatever rumor the original post heard. The point of HR is to manage personnel. The CEO is at the top of the pyramid who may or may not answer to a board of directors. If the CEO tells HR to get effed, HR gets effed or fired 99.9999999% of the time. The only exceptions are extremely large publicly traded companies where legal has a duty to report to the board and the board determines the CEO is too large of a liability for the shareholders. Inviting an employee to a party over other employees because she is pretty is virtually never going to cut the mustard against this standard. Even if true. What people fail to understand is that HR works for management, not the employees. Their job isn't to help the employees at all, but to protect the company. You are absolutely right that if the CEO tells HR to get effed, they will. It's called human resources. You're the resource of the company. It's not social services. However, sometimes protecting the company by getting managers to behave will make life better for the employees. They are there to make sure that the company follows the laws that are in place to protect employees so that the company won't get sued, etc. Yes, as someone with a master's in HR, I can confirm the accuracy of your understanding, despite your cynical tone. Haha. My tone wasn't even intended as cynical. But I do have resting butthole voice that even comes off sometimes in my writing. There is a lot of truth behind this, and unfortunately I work in a right-to-work state which only benefits the employer honestly. I had a tooth pulled in an emergency situation and my face was all bruised up the next morning. I wasn't in too much pain, but I was uncomfortable and feeling like crap. My doctor gave me a 2-day excuse for work if I wanted to use it. I was almost out of my probation period, lots of praise for my innovation and critical thinking. A lot of people in the industry who live in my city would give a limb to work there. I was chosen out of a pool of 200. I had a few issues with logging labor in the beginning due to an outdated and buggy in-house developed software, but once that was smoothed out I was good. Looked in the employee handbook, followed procedure, made sure I was good for using a doctor note to take the next day off. Emailed both supervisors, copied HR and production director. Called HR the next morning day because no one confirmed they got my email. I was assured I was fine. I was asked if I was going to use both days noted. I said I would fine with just the one. Fired the next week. Not by HR, by one of the supervisors, because I called off during my probation. I was like 4 days from completing probation. I informed him I spoke with HR about the day I took off and that I had emailed him the day before the call off letting him know what was going on, and if it was going to be a problem then why didn't he reply to me? I sent him the email before he left office. I know he was still there, and besides, he would email off hours too. I knew he had seen it. He told me HR backed him, told me that I was free to go. I don't know if he was being honest, but fact still remains that HR doesn't give a crap about anyone except who signs the paychecks or who could complain to that person. This is terrible and so short-sighted of the manager as well. Recruiting staff is expensive and they can fire you whenever they like anyway, so I don't even see the point of the probation period. I would say you should have called instead of emailed, but having just had dental work done, I can see why you didn't. Email gives you a paper trail whereas calls probably don't. Email with read receipt would be best. I called before I had the tooth extracted and left him a voicemail. I emailed for paper trail. NTA for taking advantage of your boss's sexism, but I urge you to use your privilege to help out and stand up for your less genetically blessed coworkers, particularly the older women who tend to get treated as invisible, and keeping in mind that you will eventually become one of these women too. Use your powers for good. You make a good point. Fortunately, original post strikes me as having a pretty good head on her shoulders. It doesn't sound like she wanted that party and then flirted a bunch or tried to use her sexuality to get ahead. Pretty good head on her shoulders. Yep. It was the pretty and good head on her shoulders that got her invited. No, I don't think she did either, at least there's zero evidence for it. She was granted a special invitation over her coworkers solely because of her looks, which is incredibly sexist but unfortunately the reality of the world, especially the tech world. She did nothing at all wrong here, and turning down the invitation would have helped no one. I just hope she uses her advantages to help those who deserve the same invitations but don't get them because they aren't young beautiful women like she is. Solely? You didn't consider any other reason she was invited. She could really be good at her job. You sound petty. Skill perception can be affected by levels of attraction, so even if she was chosen for how well she works or how well she communicates, the perception of that is affected by how attractive she is perceived as anyway. It's not petty to point out statistical realities about the positive relationship between physical attraction and career mobility. Yes, but the commenter said solely that's why I said they were being petty. I'm going off what she said. She herself said she believed she was invited because of her looks, and from my own experience in this industry, I am inclined to believe her. Again, this is not a knock against her at all, and I'm sure she's got great qualifications. But that's not why she was invited, according to her. And let's be honest, this happens all the time. Women of all stripes tend to underestimate their abilities. But I don't disagree with you. Just pointing out other possibilities. Honestly, it's likely less to do with ops looks and more to do with her social skills, which can be seriously lacking in tech industries. Tech is highly competitive and it comes down to talent. That's actually a pretty good point. Am I missing something or is your comment contradictory? Does it come down to social skills, or to talent, in the tech industry? Social skills are a talent. There's no proof that the boss is sexist, it's just hearsay. Rumors get passed and are often fabricated. If I believed every rumor I ever heard, I would be sitting in a lead basement wearing a tinfoil hat. I like the concept, but how would something like this be executed? I'm talking about things like when you see your 50-year-old coworker Jane getting ignored or talked over in a meeting while everyone stops to listen to you, you make a point to say, "Jane, I'm sorry, you were saying?" Or when you get invited to a major event and you know your coworker Marcus has worked really hard and could hugely benefit from an invitation to it, suggesting, "Thanks for including me, can I suggest that Marcus also come? He would really help add XYZ." Or go out of your way to praise colleagues that do excellent work but tend to get less recognition. Things like that. Just include an advocate for others when you're in a position of power. I was watching a group interview, bunch actors, and it was really nice to hear some of the big male stars do this when someone got talked over. It's so subtle and casual too. It isn't hard to advocate for others, or give credit where it's due. Good points. Thanks for explaining. Fantastic. What's sexism? All we have is a theory from a coworker who wasn't invited. You must only have been invited because you're pretty. Sounds more like a jealous coworker. We have one woman in our group who the boss views as exceedingly amazing in all ways. She's attractive but in my opinion not above average. But I think his opinion differs from mine. She gets all the titles, all the promotions, all the spots on committees. And here the rest of us sit. It's just ridiculous, and eventually someone is going to report it. Do you know about all the work she's done? Usually there's one or two people the bosses favor at the office, but we're able to tell who are the ones that work really hard and produce quality work and those that are all show but no quality. Yes. I've become the older woman in recent years and I'm realizing how much it hinders me career-wise. Confused face. I hope the younger ladies will have my back as I have for the ones before me. That's nice in theory. But if this is a competitive industry, as most are, using her powers for good could be detrimental to her. If you're only doing ethical things when they're easy or beneficial to you, you're not actually a good person. She has no idea if that's why she's invited though. This is a tech company. Let's be frank, you need people with social skills, and Original Post was able to successfully make connections here. It's likely that's her biggest merit and not her looks. It's just easy to say it's her looks. This ignores the statistical and 100% proven reality that people with good looks have a much easier time with mobility in their career, due to situations like these being heavily favored towards them. I'm not saying she's just a good face, but it's likely that if somebody high in the hierarchy has told her this, then at the very least it helped her get into this circle. Also, the merit of social skills is not just affected by the skills themselves. Those who are more attractive are deemed to have higher social skills than those who are less attractive based purely on their level of attraction, so even if it was her perceived social skills that allowed her entry to these circles, it's very likely that her face significantly affected management's perception of her skills in a positive way. People will come up with any reason to diminishing women's power and plant seeds of doubt. How do you mean? How would it be detrimental to her to use her position of advantage to make sure others are included based on their qualifications and not their looks? The thing about competitive industries is that oftentimes, people who help each other can get farther and stay there for longer than winner-take-all douchebags. Lending a hand means you've cultivated a relationship for someone who can be there for you when you need it. Or as my old boss put it, I'm nice to you because I may need you to hire me someday. Exactly. People underestimate how advantageous being likable and helpful to others is. Is it sexism? We don't know for sure. Original Post may be known as someone who is good at communicating and selling themselves, which is crucial for these types of events. As a programmer, me and a lot of my colleagues suck at networking, and a lot of them probably wouldn't even go. NTA. To be honest, the friend who told you that you were only invited for your looks is the butthole here, and if this is true, the CEO as well for inviting people based on looks instead of work ethic and personality. Depends on how the friend went about it, to be honest. The friend may well have been looking out for ops' best interest. I would rather be aware of sexist undertones before getting to the party than find out the hard way when I'm treated like a piece of meat by the guy who invited me. At least this way, Original Post went in informed and was able to control the situation more by taking an active role in directing her attention and which conversation she chose to engage in. If the friend said it because they were mad about not being invited and only told Original Post because they wanted to bring her down, yeah, they're TA. But I'll roll with the assumption they were just looking out for her. Because it was the CEO's friend and not ops' friend, how I read the post anyway, I assumed it wasn't said in her best interest. But yes, it certainly depends on this person's intent. Agreed, that's an important point. If this was actually true, I would want to be aware going into that situation. The way it was described, they invited women based on looks. The men were invited based on accomplishments. Well, if we want to get really technical, we don't know that none of the women were invited for their accomplishments. We just believe that some were there for their looks. On the other hand, it's also probably safe to assume that accomplishment would take a backseat to family ties, wealth, or other connections when determining invites, if this is that sort of event. If all of her colleagues were surprised by her invite, then yeah, it's probably true. NTA, what exactly were you going to tell HR? I think I was invited to this party because I am pretty. You had absolutely zero proof of this as far as you know. It may have had nothing to do with your looks. Maybe your boss will randomly pick a name to be invited, in order to give them a chance to network. Maybe they actually like your work and decided to invite you based on that. Going to HR to file a complaint based on a theory with no evidence to back it up is a really good way to negatively affect your employment and potentially cause problems for other pretty girls working there now and in the future. The thought will be can't invite her cause she's pretty and she might think that's the only reason she is invited and cause trouble. Yup. Got to be careful about how you approach HR and what kinds of things you bring to them. Something like this would absolutely work against original post and other young, pretty women in the long run, not help them. If something inappropriate had happened at the party that could impact Op's ability to do her job safely and effectively, absolutely tell HR. But as it stands, nothing bad happened and original post has no concrete basis for any sort of complaint. Exactly. HR is not going to do anything about this because there's really nothing to do. HR is going to protect the company and you will just out yourself as somebody who may be a liability to the company in the future. I guess you can feel good that you won't be invited to these events in the future, so yay? So she heads to HR and complains that she was invited for her looks, then receives an embarrassing thud back down to earth, when the boss is like, no, I picked your name from a hat, hello earth, swallow me whole, I want to die now. Could have been invited just to diversify the interest/conversation of the party? Add some various departments and age ranges? Who knows? Example, when my husband tags along to the MD-only parties he's very bored. The emergency medicine parties, medics, aides, nurses, everybody, he has a blast. You could complain to HR about the CEO's friend, assuming this person is an employee of the company. It's way out of line for this guy to be speculating that your appearance is why you're getting an invite to a company party. Well put. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.